Hi everyone, this is Donna again from Clever Crafting. Thanks for joining me today. We are going to be making a card for my granddaughter using these lovely little unicorn stamp and die cut set. So I'm starting off with some Tim Holtz watercolor paper and I'm working on the smooth side. So I've just used my anti-static pad there because I'm going to stamp it in VersaFine, which is a black pigment ink, which means that it'll sit on the surface of the cardstock for a moment and enable me to put some embossing powder on it. This embossing powder is actually from Wow. It's the super fine embossing powder from Wow. And I'm just going to pour that over and then heat emboss it because we're going to do a bit of watercoloring today. So for my watercoloring pigments, I'm actually going to be using some Distress Oxides. And I'm starting off with, this is picked raspberry. So the water brush that I've got is just one of those brushes that has water in it, and that's all I'm using, the water in that, and just using that to go over to where I've smushed a bit of colour on my silicone mat there, and I'm using that to pick up the colour. So one of the wonderful things I've discovered with watercolours is that it's really very forgiving. You can add a bit, you can take a bit off, particularly when you're using a water reactive medium like the Distress Oxides. So you can see that I'm literally just coating this in colour, and then I'm going to go back in a minute and add a couple of little shadows to it by just using the same colour and just putting another layer on. First of all, I'm a bit concerned about the amount that's on my little unicorn's face there, so I'm just going to grab a paper towel and mop that up while it's still wet. And you can see here's where I'm talking about you can just go in and do some extra shading. Just adds a nice little bit of depth. I'm really not an expert at colouring, not by a long shot, but you know, it's fun, and the more you do it, the better you get at it. And my granddaughter's just going to love it anyway. So I'm just going all around the edges there with that shading to make it, you know, as I said, give it a bit of depth and a little bit more to add a bit of texture to our unicorn. I'm actually not going to make you watch me colouring all of the unicorns, but I am going to colour another one, the last one here, that I'm actually going to do as a rainbow unicorn. This is actually the other set of 4 because I had 2 sets of 4, I stamped out 8. But I end up using this one in any case. You can see that what I'm going to do now is start mixing my colours and blending them, and the oxides lend themselves beautifully to this, although most watercolours do. So as I mentioned, that first colour there is the picked raspberry. The second colour that I'm using here is carved pumpkin that I've popped on next. So I'm actually going to be doing this in rainbow order. And I think now I'm going over to my third colour, yes I am, which is mustard seed. So you can see that literally all I'm doing is, as I said, using the water that's in that brush and picking up the colour. I am cleaning my brush between colours, particularly if I'm going to a totally different shade. I'm not sure that I did between the orange and the yellow so much, but definitely going from the yellow to the green. And I'm just using it to blend a little bit in the previous color and then moving on to the, you know, to that color. So you can see that it all goes nice and smoothly there, as long as we don't look really closely at it. But I think I do give you a close-up later. It's quite pretty. Now we're on to, oh, so the green, I beg your pardon, was cracked pistachio. I don't think I mentioned that. And then this is salty ocean that I'm using here as well. One of the other advantages by using watercolors, or you know, this as a medium, the more water you add, the less intense the color becomes. So which means that you can get a considerable amount of shading just by the amount of water you use while you're creating, which is great. So you don't have to have a lot. As I said, I've got 6 here that I'm just using the rainbow shades and getting a lovely result. This is sped up, I think, to about 2 times, maybe 3. Oh, actually, it's probably more than that. But the whole colouring, so the whole painting, I did all 8, and it did take me probably about 40 minutes in real time to do all 8. So yeah, that's sped up quite a bit. I then off screen took them all and cut them all. You can see them all cut at the top. So I also grabbed a piece of purple, which happens to be my granddaughter's favourite colour, of purple cardstock from one of the card builder packs, and I put it through my Cuttlebug through an embossing folder. Now I've got a plain strip of black that I'm also putting through my Cuttlebug in the same embossing folder because I want this to sit nicely on the card mat that I've got there. So I will that's just a rectangle that I've cut out using the new metric rectangle, so it fits beautifully on my A6 card. You'll notice that I didn't cut it short first because inevitably I cut it a tiny bit too short and I get really frustrated. So I've left that long, I'm lining it up, and I'm actually putting that directly over where the dry embossing is underneath. And so it'll line up perfectly. All my words, I'm going to show you a close-up there. You can see that. I love that look. I think it's really special. And now once I've got it all glued on, then I'm going to cut off the bottom. And so it'll be really nice and straight across there. Just snip it off. Beautiful. All right. So now we're going to, I've just I used a little bit of foam tape to put my unicorns on there. I die cut the word happy several times out of black and then one out of silver, and then I stamped the birthday on a black strip and embossed it with silver embossing powder. I will link all of those items and everything below so you can see the things that I used. I like to use glue on the back of my mats, particularly when they're embossed, to make sure that it's going to stick nice and firmly. And I have found that standing up as a general rule to help me get it centered on my page. Oh, that looks so cute. This is actually a top folding card as well. So it's an A6 card, so an A4 piece of cardstock cut in half lengthways and then folded in the center to make a top folding card. Now this is a piece of purple printer paper that I have, and I'm making the envelope to match. So I've cut it out to be 21 centimeters by 21 centimeters to give us a nice square. So that's the actual width of the paper. And you can see that all I did is I placed my card in the middle. I just eyeballed it. It doesn't have to be perfect. And I'm folding all the edges in. Now I am leaving a little bit of room on each of the edges to make sure that I can slip this card in and out easily. So once I've done that, you can see all my fold lines, and I'm going to cut out those little corner pieces. So just using my scissors, I'm going to snip each one of those corners. You can see on the actual fold lines, just to that larger rectangle in the center. Once that's all done, we're just going to fold it and reinforce those creases. I do like to trim this, so you can actually do this while you're cutting your little corner pieces out because it makes them nice and neat. You can see there. With this envelope, I'm just going to cut it straight across there, but that looks a little bit crooked to me. I think I tidy that up later. I'm going to put some double-sided tape on the two side pieces that fold in because they're going to be the perfect length. It won't stick anywhere else. So now all you're going to need to do for creating this envelope is remove that double-sided tape. The reason that I don't like to use glue on this one is because it might seep out and stick the envelope down. And you can see that all you need to do then is push the bottom up. I'm just going to use my corner rounder for the peak at the very top to make it rounded. So now let's go back to the card. What I'm going to do is, with my granddaughter, I'm going to send her a little bit of money. Pocket money is always good. But I want somewhere to hold it so when she opens up the envelope, it doesn't go falling out. So I'm using two more of my unicorns, and I'm actually going to position them on the top part of the fold of the card on the inside, and they will act as holders for that little bit of money that I'm going to be sending her. So just be careful when you do this that you don't get the glue on the money. So I'll just put that there, and while that's drying, I'll leave the money out of it. So there we have our lovely top folding card. You can see I'll put a little stamp on the envelope so it all goes in together. And then inside we've got the lovely greeting and a place for me to write as well. So I hope you enjoyed this today and that you've been able to learn something. I'd love to see if you give it a try. We've got a great Facebook page called Gold Coast Crafters. I'll put a link to. Thank you once again for joining me, and I'd love to have a comment from you, and if you would like to subscribe so you can see all of our future videos. Have a great day. Bye.